This is At the Extremes.
Well, we are back. I'm a little less depressed. Welcome back to At the Extremes, the podcast where we discuss the extremes in our society and how we got here. Sergio is not here again, so I had to go digging around in the back of the closet, and I found someone, our most celebrated guest at this point.
I doubt that. Wife is back.
She is back. How are you?
I'm alive. Let's start there.
Yeah. So, we have these conversations on a basically near nightly basis for the last week and some change. And I just thought, you know what, let's go ahead and see what pearls of wisdom that you can drop on us. Because you've been dropping knowledge in our conversation. So I just figured, you know what, let's give some people some things to feel positive about. And
well, yeah, I mean, I think everybody is doing their best right now out there in the world. If they're disappointed in what has taken place in the last, really, it's not just the last week and a half, but I think we're all processing in the last week and a half,
Sure.
And coming to grips with what is ahead. So that's the tone pretty much everywhere, definitely at work, at home, in the grocery store sometimes.
in the grocery store?
I don't know.
That's an interesting place to feel that.
I had a really interesting encounter at the dentist the day after the election, in case you'd like to hear about it.
No, yeah, please.
I may have told you the story already,
No,
but
please do.
I'll tell it again. So, I think everyone can remember what the day after felt like, especially, I began the day very early, as I often do, and went to the gym, and I think on my way there that it was close to being called because it was looking overwhelmingly bad.
Because that was at 5 a.m.?
So I usually leave around 5:50-ish,
Okay.
and then
Yeah.
my class starts at 6:15. So it would have been in that window.
Sure.
And I just remember sitting in the car as soon as I parked in the parking lot, and I think my immediate reaction was I cried, and then just a little bit, because I knew I had to also go inside, and
work out.
yeah.
And hit your top pace.
Yeah,
Base pace.
that was a real rage workout that
Base
morning.
pace.
But I remember just kind of being slumped on a bench waiting for class to start, and I didn't meet anyone's eye. I think I was in that kind of hypo aroused state of low zone,
What does that mean?
Zombie-like, just
Okay.
like I got hit over the head or something. It felt a lot like right after my car accident that happened last month, just can't form words, you know? So I'm really thankful that no one talked to me. But later that day I had a dentist appointment. So, how fitting the day after the election.
Go to the most least satisfying place on earth.
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite, but you get charged when you don't show up apparently. So that gives me pause. So I just bit the bullet, and I was met with, of course, the real heroes of the dental offices are the dental hygienists. Shout out dental
Big
hygienists.
ups.
Yeah, big ups, because they're nearly always women. I don't want to categorize them all as being women, because there are plenty of great men out there in that profession as well.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with that profession. It certainly doesn't. They're the real deal.
Sure. Yeah,
They're the real heroes.
They're the nurses
of your dental
of the
cleaning
dental
story,
work.
right?
Yeah.
So I got someone. I had an interaction in the hallway prior with two dentists who were kind of chatting in the hallway. One of which was my former dentist. The other was a guy I hadn't seen before, but it was two men in the hallway. And the guy who I hadn't seen before was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I said, "I've had better days." And then just went into the bathroom.
So you said that to the person?
Absolutely.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, with no expression on my face other than please leave me the fuck alone.
I'm trying to signal you.
Today is not the day.
Sure.
Don't get smiley cheery with me.
Yeah.
So
I'm mourning.
I was on my way to the bathroom, and I immediately felt bad. God, you're such a bitch, And then I go back out to the lobby. I get called back for my cleaning, and when I enter the room, the dental hygienist, I feel so terrible because after all of this, I didn't catch her name, but I'll always remember this exchange on this day. And I got in the chair and she's like, how you doing? And I said, I've been better, And she's like, yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
And like, she lowered her voice a lot as if she didn't want to be overheard, which meant that she had to kind of stay shush, a little quiet. So I immediately was picking up on the tone that her boss voted for the opposing party.
The opposition.
Right. A little bit of background story. Very quickly, I used to work at a country club, and my dentist was somebody who I had waited on as a teenager.
I didn't know
like
that.
funny crossing over of worlds, but like he's a member at the country club where I worked for about a decade.
Sure.
So it made sense that he was my dentist, and he's, we usually have the same conversation every 6 months. How you doing? How's work? You going on any vacations? Okay, see you in 6 months. Everything looks good every time.
Typical.
So, I go through my cleaning, and my dental hygienist slowly reveals herself to me.
I thought you were going to talk about a cavity or something.
No, I do have one of those that I'll need to get taken care of. But sidetracking me. Don't do that. It's hard for me to land the plane when I'm telling a story, Greg.
Sorry, go on.
So anyway, she's revealing herself and her views and her disappointment and her devastation to me throughout that appointment, of course, in very hushed tones. And I just, at one point, I almost got choked up. Like, I felt seen, but I also felt sorrowful. Like, I was fully aware of the environment where she's working that is probably misogynistic, and much like many dental practices out there, like, it is a very degrading environment toward women. They tolerate a lot of bullshit, like grab ass and like just disgusting shit because they need a paycheck and because they busted their asses in school. But there's a lot of sexual harassment and possibly even sexual assault going on in those environments. And so for anyone out there who thinks that that's total horseshit like I do, go and find yourself a female dentist, because they do exist. It is not a male-run profession, and that should not be the tone anymore.
Yeah.
So now I'm off on a tangent, but back on track. My dental hygienist treated me with such trauma-informed care that day.
That's interesting.
It truly, I mean, like, they have definitely upped the ante, and I think that regulations are probably firming up around like marrying the mental health component and the dental component and the overall wellness medical attention component, because when my new dentist came into the room, it was the same gentleman I encountered in the hallway who I hadn't seen before. He very quickly into our conversation identified himself as Lebanese American, Lebanese in descent, born in America. And he felt the need to qualify that, to which I replied, but let's celebrate your Lebanese heritage as well as your American born citizenship. Like, it's okay to be both and to celebrate both. And he's like, thank you so much. And, and he asked me what I did for a living. I told him what I did for a living. He said, oh shit, all the things you must deal with every day. Like, thank you so much for what you do. So it was just a very pleasant exchange between both professionals. And his warmth and he said, I kind of got the sense that he too was disappointed with the outcome of the election. I think he was trying to remain PC. I think everyone in that appointment, save for myself, was trying to remain PC, politically correct. What even is that anymore? We shouldn't use that term. So I'm going to nix that from the record. But they were trying to be sensitive to the fact that they work among the others. And I could tell that there was safety in that space, because she felt like she could speak and be herself and hold her views in front of him. And so I immediately fired my other dentist and hired him. He doesn't know that yet, but I did schedule my next appointment with him to fill my cavity. Yeah. So I remember like driving home, and that whole day, I think everybody was in a blur and depressed and sorrowful. And that encounter was so needed. It was like, of all the people I could have gotten as my dental hygienist that day, I got someone who, she told me a story about how when she was a little girl, her mother took her to a civil rights march.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and her mother has since died, but she remembers and very fondly remembers that, and so she has a very she has strong roots in like social justice. Yeah, which like we were vibing in that dentist office, including when my new Lebanese dentist came in and joined the conversation, and I was really grateful for that encounter because it is what I needed that day. I needed to know, like, your people are here, your people are out there. So
now, can I ask you a follow-up question to that?
sure, that was a really long answer to your first question.
Well, I mean,
Sorry.
I'm glad we introduced the show at least.
Well played.
Well, you know what? Actually, before I ask you the next question, let's go ahead and take a real quick break. We're back. We left with you giving a real quick summary of what happened the day after the election and you were at the dentist office. You were saying that you felt seen in that moment and you felt like you were amongst like-minded folks at least. Have you had an interaction since the election with somebody who isn't like-minded or isn't in the same space, like in terms of disappointment or frustration or anger? Have you come across somebody who's like, yeah, no, I'm actually happy that the election went the way that it did?
Unclear if I've encountered anyone who's happy about. I'm sure I have.
Something where it's come up like in conversation. No?
Nothing has come to mind in terms of being that outwardly like, yeah, I'm glad he won. Like, not in my circle. Absolutely not.
Sure.
However, I did have a conversation earlier today with someone who I know their political views and who they 99.9%
you can make a safe assumption.
Correct.
Sure.
And we had a really pleasant conversation about other things. So I think that what is happening across most, maybe like the Republicans who voted for him begrudgingly, they were not brave enough to vote against him because they are loyal to their party, like those people, because there are varying degrees, a spectrum, if you will, my favorite thing, a spectrum of people who voted for him. We know that there are people who are literally rejoicing. There are people who are already making death threats and have taken us back to the times of slavery. And then there are like
that's a shout.
the begrudging Republicans who voted for their party candidate but don't like him, want to move on. And so they're pretending like nothing's happened. And all of the above angers me, but that it's hard to pick like
what's more annoying. If you're out loud and like self-righteous about it versus
or if you're like, hey, so
apathetic.
how are you? Like, how's the weather? Like, how you been doing? What do you got going on this weekend? Like, don't fucking talk to me about normal life things. How dare you, you know?
Give me a couple of months before we start talking about the weather again.
I'm there. I think what I'm struggling with, and I'm sure that others can relate, I'm struggling with how do I broach the subject of what you did when the time comes to talk about what you did, because you did this. When fire starts raining from the sky in a few months, they're all going to start cowering and they're really going to want to like talk about it and defend. And I'm not prepared for that. I'm really, that's been troubling me a lot, and it's rocks in my stomach, troubling, you know?
Sure. I'm right there with you. It's definitely been a struggle. Can I ask you, like, in these moments when what you do is so hard for work, and then life, we're replacing our flooring. We had a nightmare flood, a Noah's Ark event, if you will.
A Noah's Ark event
in our upstairs.
Well, I think if we're talking about our traumas, I think it's important to mention that it was within the same week as the car accident. And also you were leaving for a work trip to Texas the next day. And then there was another flood the following week after you got back when the kitchen faucet needed to be replaced. So we hit the bingo card max.
Let's not say there was a flood in the kitchen. Well, I got hit with scalding hot water.
There was a lot of water on the floor.
Not nearly as much as there was upstairs.
Hey, listen,
anyway, the point being,
October was a sensitive month, and then you head into November, and it was like, bam, November 5th, your life is over. I'm being dramatic. We're okay right now, and I am fully grounded in every single moment to moment is like kind of how I'm living right now.
Sure.
And right in this moment, I am safe, I am warm, I am here with you and our dogs, and we have a house and we have jobs, and we're okay. And I just want to be okay. I think everybody wants to be okay. And I think that's a big practice that I reemploy over and over again in this life when it calls for it.
So that actually leads me into my next question. What are you doing for self-care right now? And where are you finding what's your source of hope and inspiration in these moments?
Well, I'm trying to recall a Brene Brown special, if you will, something she posted. And it was talking about how hope is the opposite of despair. And what people are feeling right now and what people are really struggling with is their despair. But the way we counter despair is with hope. And so something I have been saying before the election is that the thing that I don't want to lose ever is hope. Hope is a very powerful tool that we can call on, and not to confuse hope with toxic positivity. Like everything happens for a reason. I don't subscribe.
We're being put through a trial for a reason.
I don't subscribe to that.
Yeah.
I hope is the belief that things have to get better. There is no other option. Hope is that Mr. Rogers quote about like when shit goes to shit, look for the helpers.
Yeah,
I love that.
Fred Rogers, big up. Big ups to Fred.
We're cheersing to Fred.
Well, no, you are.
I am. I'm gonna take a sip of this because I can speak.
It was a solo
for a few. You heard the dentist story.
Yeah. I
can speak at length about this. So
yeah, I'll give you a little bit of something that I did to help with feeling like you know me, I'm a big believer in feeling like I've got control in my life and in trying to like maintain that level in whatever way I can. And I have felt very out of control for the last week. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like, the emails that I've sent, to my congressmen, my local representatives, and getting in contact with people who live in swing states that I know who are like, I try to put pressure on them, like to no avail, but like, trying to like communicate, like this is really, really important, and trying to push for some level of like influence, control of something. And so last night I attended a phone call, the Indivisible call that I think I plugged last week. And, they came up with a couple of different things. And it was really like sales pitchy, but there were a couple of things that I got out of it that really give me hope. If not hope, at least something to aim for. And I think that's kind of like what hope means to me is like, there's something I can try to achieve here.
yes,
I can push for something. I can
Yes.
continue to try to do something here. So one of the things they came up with like this quote playbook, which is kind of, it's, whatever, it's bullshit. But play number 1, we all must be all in against Project 2025.
all in.
What does
I'm
that
against
mean?
it.
What does that mean though? Like, and play number 2 and play number 3 reinforce play number 1. Play number 2, we have to play hardball with all of the Democrats at local, like a local county level, a state level, and at a federal level. We have to say, do whatever you can to keep this thing from happening. Slow it down in the courts. Do whatever you have to do. And the last one, work to protect those who are in swing states. Like, we have to work with those in swing states to protect like the vote that's already there. So how do we like get those people to remain in the Democratic Party and then build off of that coalition? But it helped me to go, okay, I know that I'm not in a swing state. I know that I'm not somebody who's going to influence my friends who are in swing states. They are who they are, and they're going to vote the way they're going to vote. But what I can do is I can continue to email my representatives, and I can continue to do those things. And that gives me some hope. And that means, for me at least, there's some control level that I can exercise here.
Yeah.
And that really helps. You've said this a lot. In fact, actually, you've said this you've talked about thinking, acting locally and thinking globally. You've said that a lot. Mm-hmm. And they were saying, hey, look, act hyper local. I'm talking about your town councilman. I'm talking about your board of educations. Let's be super local, think locally, and act maybe in this case nationally, right?
Well, in Maryland, I think it was the Attorney General, Anthony Brown, maybe, sent out a notice that he's working tirelessly to take these concerns seriously and to protect Marylanders. And so, yes, we can write to people without getting too political, because that's not my strength. And I'll be very, very transparent about that. I don't know how you reach the pockets of people who don't believe in politics and don't want to participate and be part of it. Because I've talked to a lot of people in the last week in a work capacity who either didn't vote, don't understand that entire system, because it really does not translate to every single person out there and every single learning style.
Sure.
I, for a very long time, and even still, I understand so much less than I do understand.
Right.
You know
less than you know.
I know very little.
Yeah.
I understand at a very basic kindergarten level, how elections work. And I feel like if I'm a fairly intelligent human, I represent a very big population out there of people who really are not informed. So for you, I am really glad that you have, and I'm trying to also focus locally here, so as not to get too far out of reach and speak on too many big groups of people, because it's overwhelming. So more locally here under our roof, for you, and I've witnessed how the last week has taken a toll on you, and I'm really glad that you are finding hope where you feel like you also have some control.
Sure, yeah.
And you have a purpose. And I think that's what we all need to do.
Yeah.
To bring it back to your question, what have I been doing specifically? All the things I always do. Routine. I keep a routine. I do not break my routine for anything, not even what has happened this past week, because a large portion of my routine is waking up very early, is moving in a way that feels good. So whether that be the gym, whether that be out in my art shed, like working on ceramics, whether it be taking a walk, just meditating, however I need to, I have to start the day in a way that feels good, a way that is completely about me. And that is the most selfish, wonderfully selfish that a person can be, is to prioritize, just take 1 hour a day for you, where nobody and nothing else. I mean, when I go to the gym, we have to put our phones in lockers. It's such a beautiful thing to know that everybody in there is there for the same reason, to take care of themselves and to move in a way that feels good. When I teach yoga, I reinforce these same principles. Move in a way that feels good, honor your own body. And when I speak to people in a work capacity, in therapy, I really talk heavily about, what are you eating? Are you eating a colorful diet of nutrient-dense foods? Are you drinking water? Are you sleeping? And I tell my clients, I'm very transparent, I would not recommend you do anything that I myself would not try. So when they say, I found this 3-minute or 3-hour meditation on YouTube that has been helping me fall asleep, okay, I'll have a listen, I'll peruse, yes, I've tried this. Yes, it works, and I'm not disclosing, I'm just saying I will practice these same things. So I have to set that example, not only for other people, but most especially for myself.
Yeah.
When I lose my routine, I don't have anything to firmly ground my feet, and so grounding is a big part of that. And there are really easy ways we can do that. We can breathe. When you extend your exhalation to be longer than your inhalation, you're engaging the parasympathetic part of your nervous system, which is your rest and digest, your happy and calm. It's your peaceful place.
Sure.
When you are in fight or flight or freeze or fawn, you are in your sympathetic nervous system.
Fawn, I've not heard that one yet.
Yeah, it's kind of like that numb state, like after a car accident. You're
really?
just,
Okay.
well, I give up, There's whole there's very colorful charts on the internet that kind of illustrate all of these states.
I've not heard fawn yet. That's all.
There's some others. Fornicate, food.
You know what?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Back on track.
Yes, let's get back on track.
So grounding, meditation, affirmations, people connect with a lot of these things.
Sure.
Guided visualization is something I'm on a kick with right now, because it really helps.
It's a great thing.
It helps anxious folks for sure.
For sure.
And one of the easiest ways to meditate is to picture the ocean. People like water. Water's very calming.
What's your what's your environment that you put yourself in?
The ocean,
Really?
like a beach. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because most people, when they think about like the sound of waves rolling in and out, they can picture that and hear it in their mind.
Do you know you know where mine's at?
Probably a mountain or a lake, or like a mountain with a lake, or the woods.
Orcas Island in Washington. Yeah, that one lake that we went to.
Oh, yeah. The spot where there's a photo of you gazing out across this. Yeah.
Yep, that's where I go to when I meditate.
Oh, you have told me that before.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Let's follow up with this other question, though.
Okay.
What's giving you hope right now? What's giving you, what's fueling you for the next 4 years of fighting really, really hard against what might be coming down the pike?
How angry I am.
You're using your anger to fuel you.
Yes.
Okay.
Because anger is poisonous if you let it fester, but if you let it fuel you, as you say, you realize what you're fighting for. And I know that I'm fighting for all of the people who are not in a safe and secure place the way that I am.
Sure.
And I recognize my privilege in saying that. This is not white vigilante shit. I want to dig down deep and get my hands dirty for these people.
Yeah.
I want to speak out about my values. I do not want to hold back for anybody who says, "Oh, we shouldn't discuss politics." Yes, the fuck we should, because you made a really big statement when you voted for him. And I don't think that's right. I don't think it's right that countless people will lose out on affordable, safe healthcare practices, that programs will get cut, and the Department of Education, I can't even go into it. Like, the things that will be abolished, the worries that I have are exponential.
Sure.
And if I choose to fuel those thoughts, I will spiral in a very dark hole, and I don't know how to claw my way out of a really dark hole. So I can't go there just yet. It is one day at a time. It's one moment at a time. It is one problem at a time.
I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's, we're all dealing with it in our own way. And I think that I've been stuck in, I had a buddy of mine text me earlier. So what stage of grief are we in? Are we still in the angry phase? Or are we, and I was like, you know what? Like, cause I was like, oh, you know, like when the great leader comes to your house and like shakes your hand and like, we have to put pictures up, like, you better be right. Cause I was like, I was like, man, like Trump train 2028, woo, woo. And like, you know, trying to like, you know, I don't know, spin him up a little bit and take the piss. And he was just like, where are you at right now? I was like, dude, I don't know where I'm at. I'm stuck between like being hopeful because I feel like there's a playbook now that I can follow, even if it leads nowhere. You know what I mean? Like, it's the thing that humans need, is something
a plan
to chase.
Yeah.
Especially somebody like myself, I have to have something to chase
you need a blueprint of some sort.
It's not even I need a blueprint. I just need to know, like, that's the direction we have to go in that direction.
You
like,
need to chase a ball.
I am like, I'm a ball chaser. I play team sports for that exact reason. But, you know, we were talking and I was just like, I'm between like periods of like incredible frustration and anger and like this glint of hope. You know what I mean? Like the idea that, you know what, like, all right, you know what, there are enough people where I'm at today, right now. There were 50,000 people in that call last night. That's the largest call I've ever been a part of. I know that that's not, 7 million people, whatever it is, or 4 million people. But I do know that 50,000 people were on that call, and they're going to share that conversation with at least 2 people. And maybe those 2 people share the conversation with one person. That person shares the conversation with another person. And maybe we can get this ball rolling. And it's the hope and ambition that I open every Arsenal season with, only to be crushed with. And I know I know what that feeling feels like, of like, oh, we're going to do it this year, only to like fall short. But like this does mean something. And we do have to go after it. To your point, like there is no more like, oh, politics, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about money, blah, 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 blah. No, like what we do in that voting booth by ourselves every year, every 4 years, or every 2 years, or every year, for those of us who are frequent voters and are engaged politically, those decisions affect our day to day, every single day.
It matters a lot.
So to say you can't talk about it or we shouldn't talk about it, that's silly.
Why? That's really toxic conditioning that a lot of people experience across a lot of areas of life. It truly is. There's this rule book that nobody follows anymore about what things you shouldn't talk about, but they're actually all the things we should talk about. Women are told to stay quiet about a whole lot more than men are. I can guarantee you that. And I'm tired of staying quiet. It hasn't benefited me. And as I head into a new decade of my life, these are the things that I think about. Like, how worth it is it to you to stay quiet about shit that you actually really care about and it makes you really angry? And you live with me. You know the kinds of things that make me angry. Most of them are trivial and silly things. But the really deeply rooted things that make me angry are my passion things. They're the things that I care about the most. And when those things feel threatened, there is a fire and a rage that I can't even describe that happens.
I'd like to harness that rage and that fire a little bit more here. And I ask you a follow-up question to something that we talked about a couple months ago, actually. We spent about 2 hours talking about it. Cody and the Trad Wives. We had that conversation, and I think this election really crystallized that conversation. Did the Tradcons win? Did Cody and his ilk win?
I think that those people are going to function like that regardless of who's in office because they've made that clear.
Did their ideology win?
You'd have to define win because nothing's happened yet. And I think plenty will happen. I mean, things have happened. But what I mean is he's not in power yet. And I'm, speaking of the stages of grief, I'm refusing to enter the acceptance stage. I will not accept this. I do not accept this. And I just wanted to.
There is no radical acceptance?
No.
I hear that first, Sergio.
No. I don't mean it like that. I accept that this is what we will have to live with for the next, 50 years. I think we're in a new time where people do feel emboldened to share their views. They just do it in a very veiled way. And the trad wives are going to trad wife, and that's fine. That's an interesting way to live, and that's what I'd like to say about that. I think that if you are talking about stoking that fire, though, like more of this talk of like, what can I do? And I think each person sitting with and thinking about their own purpose in this, we don't all need to do what Greg does. We don't all need to do what I do. I mean, I'm offering these things, the things that I'm doing to focus very locally, which is taking care of myself so that I can be an instrument of change and peace. And that is deeply important to me. Whatever that looks like in whatever environment I am in, I can be an instrument of change and of peace.
Sure.
And so my anger will not turn into violence. And I know that.
No, God, no.
My anger should turn into energy toward the things that will make things good. Will I have to stomach through some of the things that make me enraged in the bad way? Yes, I am doing that work, and I am very focused on letting that energy leave my body as quickly as possible. And it mostly has, because I'm engaging in these self-care practices that I don't relinquish ever.
So the trad cons didn't win then, is what we're saying?
No.
Good.
I refuse to say that.
Good. So you know me. You know I'm one for numbers. You know that I'm one for stats. The numbers tell the story kind of person. And I'm going to bring up some discouraging numbers, and then I'm going to bring up some pretty nice numbers. And I just want to get your thoughts and your feelings on these. And this is after Trump was indicted on sexual assault charges, all the ads that we saw from like the Kamala campaign talking about women hiding their vote from their husbands and all that other stuff. Remember that?
Listen, I know you're trying to force the argument that the trad wives did win because of the sheer number of white women who voted for him and also love him, which is weird and creepy.
Yeah, I mean, the potential national abortion ban, you would think would motivate women. And I just want to give you a couple of numbers here.
Okay.
White women for the third election in a row voted for Trump in an overwhelming majority. In 2024, 52% of white women voted for Donald Trump. In 2020, 53% did. And in 2016, 52%. So like it's fluctuated only by a point, right? But that's still a vast majority.
Well, there's a lot of women out there who hate women.
Yep.
And who think about other women as a threat. And that's something that we've been societally conditioned to think and feel.
What does that mean?
Other women
I
are...
don't know what that means.
So there are many schools of thought as females, as you can see. The 52, 54, 52% that vote for Donald Trump, they are probably aligned with the type of women who hate other women and see other women as a threat, especially if they don't look like them.
Can you crystallize what that means, though? Can you like expand
No, I
on
can't.
that? What does that mean? That
I
women
can't
hate
understand
women?
it. But I can't understand how women hate women, but that's... Other women are a threat. Think about it. Like it's the fight of your life to go and like find a husband. Like it's the most indoctrinated thing about being a female. So this is why females who don't feel this way or align with this way of thinking are ostracized. They're on the out, especially if they like other women. But for those of us for cisgendered women who are likely the type of women who voted for Donald Trump, because I've met these women. I told you I had dinner and one showed up a few weeks ago, So I know who they are. We're, some of them are in our own families, Greg.
Sure. Yeah.
We know who they are. They're largely unaware. I don't want to say uneducated because many of them are educated.
Well, let me go ahead and bring you another stat.
Please do.
Non-college educated white women voted for Trump by a margin of 63%.
Okay, so most of them are unaware, as I like to put it.
College-educated white women voted for Trump by a margin of 41%.
That's concerning. But I think a lot of them are young.
And it's
college campus aged.
Well, I'll give you this number. In 2020, it was 45%. And in 2016, it was 47%. So it is tracking downward, that number.
I would say a large,
pretty shocking
I would
number
say a
now.
large percentage of those are probably like those COVID kids, the ones that finished high school online back in 2020.
Yeah.
And they're voting in their first election, and their parents were real Trumpy then, and they're real Trumpy now.
Here's another statistic about women in the Harris-Trump 2024 race. Black women voted for Harris by a margin of 91%.
They understood the assignment, as we like to say.
So what is the part of my brain that goes, well, what's the difference here? What's happening? What's happening that
women were definitely threatened by a woman of color running.
Right.
They are also the type of women that think that their husbands are right about everything. And they are also the type of women that leave the voting to their husbands. And many of them probably vote as their husband votes. And their husband's a piece of shit.
Okay.
I'm just making sweeping assumptions.
No,
but
no.
we've met these women. That's what I'm saying. Like, I know who these women are. Yeah. And they're gross. Like, they can't think for themselves. They're too fucking stupid. I'm sorry to say it. But they were sold a dream, and they're also part of a generation that in general like didn't deal with their shit.
I hear you. I'm not saying
the boomers are a problem for a lot of reasons, and this is one of them.
But here's the problem. You know who showed up really big in this election?
Young people and seniors.
Young men, Gen Zs, Gen whatever they are.
They're morons.
Who showed up.
We know that though. They're morons. They they don't make sense, and they're not prepared for the world, so they would believe him.
But hold on.
Okay.
We said as a collective, Gen Z is going to be the generation that saves us.
Who said that?
We've all been saying it for such a long time.
We?
Oh, they're so inclusive. They're so smart. They're so much better than we are. They know everything. Blah, 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 blah. It turns out that...
I think I need to know the cutoff years because...
I don't know the cutoff years, but we would agree that that is the voting age, like younger voting age, yes? We would say that, right? We were all saying for a really long time, this is the generation that's going to save us. They're past racism. They saw a black president. They've lived with all this. They grew up with understanding that you can't do this. You need to be empathetic, blah, 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 blah,
But
blah.
a lot of them are only in their like first or second election at most.
Right. And hold on. It turns out it doesn't matter to them because they've
grown up in the age of Donald Trump.
They grew up in an age where trolling on the internet was like the fun thing to do.
Right.
And trolling in real life, oh, I can do that now. So is it the old people or the young people?
It's both.
Or is it all of us? We're all fucking stupid and we all some people bought it more hook, line, and sinker than others.
I can't speak to that.
I'm not asking like for it to be an answered question. I think I'm just leaving it out there to kind of be like, what are we talking about here? Like who, it turns out that no one's fucking smart except for like highly engaged, like voter base. And those people are only one vote.
I'm depressed again. Can we take a break?
Sure. Of course.
Thank you.
We'll be right.
It's a depression break.
We'll be right back. So I want to come back and I want to talk about something that was brought up during the call that I was on last night. And it made me think about our current situation moving forward. And they were like, listen, I know it's really hard to hear right now. Right now is not the time that anyone wants to hear. There's good news that came out of this election. No one wants to hear it, myself included. I almost turned it off during the period of time where they were talking about this because I was like, fuck that. Mm-hmm. But I think, you know, when we talk about, this is a really hard time in my life, I'm going through a really hard period, you know, and you hear people encourage you when it's not a national catastrophe, but it's your own personal thing where people say, yeah, but just slow down for a second, you know, embrace the moment, like enjoy the suck. Like you have to like get to a place where you enjoy the suck. But like, while you're doing that, like try to look for that silver lining. How many times have you told me that? Like when
think about COVID. I mean, I'm recalling 2020. That sucked. People really didn't like the lockdown. And for the first like month or two of that was rough. Sure. And a lot of people fell into a really dark place. That was a dark time in our country. Mm-hmm. It impacted suicide rates. It impacted a whole lot of shit. It impacted people's development. Yeah. I think we're going to study it for years to come, what the impact of COVID had on people's mental health.
Sure. Yeah.
And I've already started to look into it because it's an area that really interests me. We made it through that, and there were some dark points in that, but there were also some really high points, some really light points. So if digging deep into the depths of humanity is what it takes for the helpers to shine and for the really good people to come out of the woodwork, I hope the fuck they do.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think people are so scared to speak up that this is not right. This doesn't feel good to me. This feels fucked up. And so I think if anything comes out of this, people will feel, I already feel empowered. And have I ever been anyone to be this vocal, even in the last two elections that the Orange See You Next Tuesday was a part of? Mm-hmm. I've never been this angry about something that's so deeply impactful for so many people. And I don't think I've ever viewed a political election the way that I've viewed this one.
What's the saying? If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, I remember my first election, and that was, I think, your first election as well, which was Bush.
Yeah,
Gore.
2004.
Bush Gore. Was it Bush Gore? Yeah, it was Bush Gore.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, like, I had all my friends around me, and I don't think anyone was voting. And I think I registered that fall of that year. And I remember being outraged about what was happening with the environmental policy of George Bush and what he was preparing to do. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, what the fuck is, like, why aren't more people angry about this? Why aren't more people taking this more seriously? And I think one of the encouraging things, the silver linings that they were talking about last night is, next year, when there are votes, like in local, state, and municipality level, people who have this anger today, to your point earlier, not that we need to foster anger, but we need to foster motivation.
Mm-hmm. Channel it.
We need to move that into a place where, oh shit, no, this matters. And it matters in my community, it matters at the state level, and it matters at the federal level. We have to mobilize. And if there's one highlight from this that comes out of it is, if we get the chance to vote again, maybe more people will be motivated when they see, oh shit, my best friend just got deported and I don't know where he went. Or the guy who used to run the Chinese food store down the street from me just got disappeared in the middle of the night and I don't know where he went. Oh, turns out that he's no longer around, whether it's in the country or dead. Who knows? Because we don't know what's coming. One of the things I would like to bring up, though, that came out of this election, and I do think that this is something we do need to highlight here. There were 10 states during the general that had a referendum up on protecting a woman's right to health care in this country. 8 out of 10 states passed that referendum, including our home state of Maryland. There are lots of things I hate about this place. Most of it's the weather.
I love it here.
I fucking hate the weather here.
After last week, I love it here. I felt
we don't have actual mountains. We have hills.
Hey, they're mountains.
No, they're not. The Appalachians are not mountains. I went to school out there. I can tell you right now. They ain't mountains.
I think by other standards, they are in fact mountains.
Well, if you live in Florida, which is one of the states that did not pass
Anyway.
a right to a woman's health care.
Yeah, that's...
On last Tuesday, along with, of all places, South Dakota, which makes 21 out of 50 states in the country with an abortion ban currently in effect, which is a minority population.
How many?
21 out of 50, which is
Jesus,
less
that's
than,
almost half.
but it's also less than half, right? So
But it's almost half. That's really fucking scary, Greg.
I don't disagree with you. But it is a 8 out of 10 states did vote to protect the right to women's health care. And I think that's, again, I'm not saying that anyone wants good news right now, but if there is something to be pulled out of that, we have to try to find something.
Yeah, I guess it's a glass half empty, glass half full, but
It's a glass mostly empty?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Who was the person leading the call? Was it a man or a woman? Or
they were sharing the microphone the entire time. Elizabeth Warren was on the call. So the senator from Massachusetts, she ran for, her whole thing. So she was on the call, and she opened the engagement with people and was talking about, like, look, if you're angry, this is the time.
I'm glad at least that there were women speaking about this issue because...
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Honestly, and I mean no disrespect to you or to the person in charge of the calls, whoever they were, but it's just really not something that men should continue to speak on.
I don't disagree with you.
There should be fucking 50 states with no abortion ban.
You won't
period.
Hear any arguments
End of sentence.
here.
Because this has become a religious issue. It's become a political issue.
It's always been a religious issue, though.
But it's a healthcare issue.
Right.
Period. End of sentence. It's a healthcare issue.
Sure, yeah.
That's it.
I'll
It is
disagree with
not
that.
someone else's choice or decision. If you don't like abortions, don't get one. That's it.
It's pretty straightforward.
This is ridiculous that we're even having this discussion about, oh, well, it's trending in a good direction. And I appreciate that. You know me. You know I appreciate the positive side of things always. And I'm always going to try and see the glass as half full. But part of my outrage is largely about this.
I don't disagree with you. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think that one of my things that in my effort to try to gain some level of hope back in the people who are in this country is to say, all right, 10 states.
What else do you have? What other figures?
That's it.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, there was I do believe Delaware voted in the first openly trans person
They did.
to go into Congress, which is an excellent step forward.
As well as Angela Also Brooks being the first.
Angela Also Brooks, the first
Black
black
woman.
senator coming in from Maryland, which is great news.
Great news for Maryland and Delaware.
But I think, the other thing, kind of playing off of the earlier theme of finding hope in our community, and that we started talking about last week, Sergio and I did, is that this is going to bring people together.
It already has, and that is hopeful.
And that is hope, right?
That's
That's
communities are a part of how we heal.
Yeah.
We heal on our own journey, but we also heal in the company of others. And if anything, this brings communities of people together because people are seeking out their people actively right now, and they should. That is my message to everyone: is find your people, make sure that you're checking in on each other. It's a two-way street right now. Like, don't assume people are fine. Think about your friends of color, think about your Jewish friends, think about any vulnerable group, your LGBTQIA plus friends,
Your
my God,
sisters, your mother, your
your female
your aunt.
friends, anybody, everybody. Nobody's off the, I mean, don't check on your Trump friends. Just kidding.
No. Let's not say
No,
that.
I need to make jokes in order to cope. That's part of
Understood.
this.
Understood.
No, I extend that same level of kindness and courtesy to everyone, because I know that there are people who voted the way that they did, and I might not agree with that. And they're still people, and they're still humans, and I'm going to treat them like I treat everybody else, because none of us are any different. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care what color your skin is. We're all people. We're all humans, and we all go through hard things. And some of us go through much harder things than others. And it's not this or that when it comes to something like this. Humans are humans.
I think I brought this up, and not to get too radical here, but we were talking about it, I think the other night, where, you were telling me a story about something that happened at work, and I was like, I was listening to something earlier today, a commentator who was saying something to the effect of like, prices have been hurting white America for the last couple of years. And like, white people are like, oh, we're poor. And black people have been like, welcome.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Hi, we've been here.
And so the poor are only getting poorer. The rich are only getting richer. And it's happened in Republican administrations, in Democratic administrations. It just continues to happen where these people get richer and richer and richer. So the impetus isn't on the politicians to change this shit. It is on us. Mm-hmm. And the less engaged you are, and when I say engaged, I don't mean showing up every 4 years. I don't mean showing up every 2 years. But I mean, and I do want to start doing this work, is hitting the pavement and talking to people, whether they do agree with me or not. And saying, listen, I think we all hate fucking billionaires. I don't know a single person who goes, you know what, a billionaire should have another billion next year.
Is the new political party that goes along with your cult, the light, the anti-billionaires?
No, we call ourselves something very different. It's under, you have to actually join at a 3rd degree light member in order to get that information. So if you want to pass along your bank details, that'd be great.
Do you need my social as well?
No, I already have that. We share a bank account.
You don't have my social.
I have your social. I have it videotape. I've got a bunch of things photographed. It's fine.
Great.
Moving on.
Great.
So as we're wrapping this episode up, and as we are finishing our conversation, I want to ask you, moving forward, what are you going to be doing to help take care of yourself and the people around you? Like not just from like a mindfulness based perspective, but also from like an engagement, like, because I think now is the time for you to harness this, to say, listen, I am no longer going to go to an event and sit there and go, yeah, no, this is fine, folks, or not speak my piece. Like you were saying earlier, I'm tired of being stifled. I'm tired of being told, be quiet or lower your voice about this, or, that's not for you. Right. What are you doing, or what do you think you can do moving forward to help take care of your people and yourself, and also continue your engagement? Because I think that is a really big part of what I'm trying to help motivate my friends and my family who are allies in the fight against, maybe a potentially very, very fascist regime that's about to come down the pike.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. Taking some notes here. On a very real level, I would really like to continue my practice of phasing out any companies that are affiliated with or benefit from
Amazon.
I had actually written out on my notepad, phase out Amazon and shop more mindfully. That's one thing that is absolutely in my control. And
we both shop from Amazon.
We do. And I said, that's why I use the term phase out. And I know that it's a problem. It's felt like a problem for a long time. I admire people who have already broken ties, and I want to be more like you is what I aim to say. Then that's my truth. I will support nothing having to do with Elon Musk. I'm not on Twitter, X, whatever it's called. But I'm really like rethinking my relationship with social media in general because of its control factor and all the really scary things, and like the AI component that's present everywhere, regardless if I want it or not. So I'm going to continue to like live in my truth with that stuff and do what feels right. And if it means I lose business or a following, my people know where to find me. You know what I mean? I'm not worried about that. And I'm also very gainfully employed, and I feel really good about the work that I do. So if ceramics is just for fun, that's fine with me. It's not my livelihood, and I am privileged to say that. So I want nothing to do with dirty companies. That's really big for me. It has been for a little while, and when I learn something, I apply it moving forward, and that's my policy. I don't pretend to know everything. I am always learning. I'm always a student, and I'm not a tree stump, so I won't be a tripping hazard. I'm always willing to grow, to change, to expand, and to do things differently. And if that means we need to live differently, I'm very willing to do that work.
I've been saying it for years. A cabin in the woods.
We're not moving.
No windows.
We have to stay in Maryland for now.
No windows.
Back to my list.
Just one solid door.
I just, checking on people, continuing to check on people and acknowledging the elephants in the room. Like, I know this is uncomfortable. How are you doing? It's okay to say that. And people actually appreciate when you can be real. So I will continue to do the work so that I can have tough conversations with people, even when I disagree with them. And I'm really doing that work and practicing just having conversations that may seem easy but are difficult for me because of who I'm having them with.
Sure.
That's actively work that I'm going to do because I have to coexist in the world with everybody, regardless of their political views, because politics come and go, but our relationships with people are really important. And I still need to feel good about the impression that I leave. And that does not mean, and let me not get this confused. Don't get it confused rather with, I don't feel the need to please people and to be liked by everyone. You can hate my guts, but I hope you have a good reason for hating my guts, because the things that I stand for are things that I back in terms of like, they feel right to me. And I know that everybody is allowed to have that opinion, but basic human rights are not on the table for me. And those are my values, and they're deeply set. And I'm not going to change. You will not change my mind about basic human rights ever. That is a foundational principle that I live by, and I will constantly do that work to be better about the work that I'm doing in terms of that. Social justice is not only like an ethical principle that I hold for my profession, but it is one I hold personally. And I don't know how people separate that. And that's something that's come up in my own deep conversations with people outside of this space of just, how are your ethical principles so different from your professional values and ethics?
Sure.
That's something that's really hard for me to wrap my head around. I think that's where I'm at right now. I don't see myself being a big political activist. I see myself on the ground level with people that need the help. I'm a helper.
Well, you do a lot of work day to day.
I'm a helper. That's my identity.
People.
That's part of like why I'm here. I mean, that's why I'm here. That's my whole identity. If there's something I can do to help, to educate, to support, I am there. I am the first in line. So that's my answer to that. I hope that satisfies the question for you.
It does, absolutely. And
what are you going to do moving forward, other than your playbook, which thank you for sharing that with me.
I think engagement, politically speaking, is something that because I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a registered Democrat. I have voted on the left wing of the part of the political spectrum my entire life. I have always believed in radically liberal policies to protect our environment, to protect those who need protection. My views have changed over my lifetime, as most people's do, and as they should. But the more you know and the more you experience, the more your value systems hopefully don't shift too much, but where they do shift, hopefully it's in a way that's to accept more people and not exclude more people. And if you are changing, hopefully it's always to accept more and to say yes more often and say no a lot less. And so one of the things I want to do is continually push for people to be uncomfortable, and that means myself included, right? So what I mean by that is being uncomfortable, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. If we're going to win this fight in the next 2, 4, 6, 8 years, whatever that looks like, we have to be willing to have some skin in the game. No longer sitting on the sideline or tweeting behind a phone going, well, you're a fucking idiot and you don't know what you're talking about and you don't know what policy actually means. Well, what am I doing other than hitting a couple of keys on a phone? Why don't I get out into the street and start saying, going around and saying, and getting engaged with local parties and local groups saying, you know what, guys, this isn't okay. And how do I become a part of the community that's going to help actually drive change versus being a keyboard warrior or, feeling depressed in my shower, right? Like, how do I actively position myself to feel like I'm doing something, even if we are to fail? It is better to die on your feet than on your knees. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like my thing is like now is, and I'm not saying it's that dire. And
why isn't it?
It may be. I don't know.
Here's the thing.
I'm not trying to future cast.
Here's the thing. As cliche as it sounds, we really don't know how much time we have.
Sure.
And we get one shot at a life. And I'll tell you what I'm not here for is for my quality of life or other people's quality of life to diminish because of a political party. Mm-hmm. And in the spirit of like living more intentionally, which is something that I've spoken at length about this evening, we only have so much time. And too many people out there claim a mediocre existence on this earth during their time here. And this time is so goddamn precious. You do not get it back. Once it's gone, it is absolutely gone and it is spent and it isn't coming back.
Yeah.
And I think about that probably daily.
Yeah.
How can I make the most of my time here? That's why I get up early. It's why I go to bed late. It's why I probably could serve to sleep a little bit more, but I just want to live as much as I can. I like so much about being here.
Yeah.
And I know that that's part of my hope. I like so much about being
That's
here.
Good.
So I don't have a mediocre existence. I don't have cheap seats. I have front row tickets every time. And
the Taylor Swift of Swiftie tickets.
I'm taking some words from a very wise person.
I swear to God, if you quote Taylor Swift right now.
No, I'm not. I'm quoting someone I've worked very closely with for over a decade. And this person has said a lot of really, really amazing and wise things. One of this person's goals was, if it's not adding to my life, it's subtracting from it. I don't want that. If it's not adding to my life, it is subtracting from it. So maybe there needs to be some things that go, because I only want to add to. I don't want things to take from. I've had enough of that. Everyone's had enough of that. When you get to a point in your life, you realize I have tolerated a lot of bullshit and a lot of things that are no longer acceptable by my standards. That means things, people, places, situations.
Right.
We can say no. We can put our foot down and say, I don't tolerate this. And that goes for fucking political policies as well. Because this isn't just about billionaires. They think it is, but this is about humans. And you're right, the large majority of us need to band together and remember why we're here. They don't control us. They don't control moments of joy. They can't take that from me. I'm not going to let them. They don't control everything.
Yeah.
Not yet, at least, because I'm going to fight like hell so that they don't. And I don't know what that looks like just yet. I don't really have all the answers. But these are the things that came up for me when you asked that question. So that's what we can do. We can add to instead of subtracting from, instead of living a mediocre existence and just being, just sitting here taking up space and resources and generating garbage and trash.
Immense amounts of garbage.
So much garbage.
Environment.
So much garbage. If I may just add one more thing.
Sure, yeah.
I want to highlight something you said. You made me think about the dentist again and about how I could have just kept it at pleasantries like people do when they say, how are you? I could have just said, fine, thanks, and you?
Yeah.
And that conversation could have gone really different than it did.
Sure.
And I'm incredibly grateful that it went the way that it did, because that gives me hope that other people can be brave enough to share their own disappointment and despair. Because when people feel seen, then they feel justified. When people feel justified, they do something about it.
Yeah.
So we need to see each other. We need to listen to each other. We need to hear what other people have to say in more ways than one. In more ways than just politically. We need to hear and actually see people. We need to understand why things are complicated for them if they're complicated.
Yeah.
You know, I won't try and reach for examples. I'll just leave it at that. We need to try and understand why people may act the way that they do. We don't know what kind of situation they're in.
Yeah.
We don't know how they live. We don't know what they have, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If we don't start to bridge the gap, then we're going to be in trouble. And I think we've decided that we're going with the hope.
Yeah, I think hope is where we belong. Next week, we're going to come back and we're going to have a chat. I think Sergey is going to be back. I don't know. I feel like he's like somewhere off gallivanting.
He's got a half marathon. Let's wish him luck.
By the time you hear this, you'll have ran the race, but I hope you won it. And if you didn't, that kind of lines up with your foosball history.
Boy.
Anyway, if you want to support us, and by support us, I mean, I want you to engage with us. I want you to reach out to us, download the Blue Sky app, find us on that thing. If you don't, go ahead and email us. I started checking it again because we're off of Twitter. If you want to hear more about it, email us, Blue Sky us, whatever it is. You call it tweets, blue skying, whatever. Till next time, beloved.
Toodles.
Funny how we